This is My Next Question, a Jewelers of America and National Jeweler podcast, sponsored by Darm International. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of My Next Question, a Jewelers of America and National Jeweler podcast. I am Amanda Gizzi, Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs, and I am joined today by Editor-in-Chief of National Jeweler, Michelle Graff.
Hi, Amanda. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited too. This is such a fun new project for 2026.
Well, as many of you may know, My Next Question started as a webinar series in 2020, and this year we are converting it into a podcast hosted by Amanda and me.
Yay, and we're so excited.
So in each episode, we're going to welcome special guests, people in the industry who have unique perspectives on their fields, whether it's trends and designs or analytics and data and retail sales and strategy. And for the first episode, we'd like to welcome a special guest.
Yes. My Next Question is sponsored by Darm International, so we are going to be joined today by Kieran Galakia, the company's Chief Operating Officer and one of Jewelers of America's 20 under 40s. Welcome to My Next Question, Kieran. Thank you so much for your support of My Next Question and National Jeweler and Jewelers of America. We really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about Darm International and all of the great things that you do for the jewelry industry.
Yeah, good morning. Darm International actively support the diamond and jewelry division, being in the industry through both immediate solution and long-term value creation. We empower the retail side with advanced technology, including lab detection instruction, real-time data feed, virtual showcase, and digital marketing support. Our in-house engineer team collaborates closely with clients to design bespoke diamond cuts and customized solution. With scalable stock availability, a wide spectrum of products, competitive pricing, and on-time or overnight delivery, we ensure reliability and speed. Our fancy shapes diamonds consistently exceed average industry cut, and we remain committed to superior craftsmanship, traceability, and high finished custom jewelry, long-term strategy, partnership, vision, and capabilities. We, Darm International, is committed to strengthening the diamond and jewelry ecosystem through innovation, transparency, and customer-centric partnership.
Thank you so much. Kieran, can you tell us, what are you most looking forward to in this new year in 2026?
Yes, in 2026 would be decent year. We as an industry leader needs to work together in order to keep up diamond desire of consumer, especially Gen Zs.
Yeah, no, that's very important. And we know that you are going to be at a lot of big events over the next year. So the industry can expect to see a lot of Darm International. I know you'll be at GEM Awards in March, so we're looking forward to having you there.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you again for all of your support of this podcast and for being part of our 2026 My Next Question.
Thank you for joining us, Kieran. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle.
My next question is going to cover a lot of interesting topics, and some of which we're going to have in a fun segment called Jewelry Never Sleeps. We just started a new year, Michelle. So what are some of the fun stories that we've been tracking? How was the holiday season? Anything fun that we should really be talking about today?
Well, I don't know how fun this is, but I'm a news person, so from a news perspective, I'm going to mention something everybody knows about, everybody's talking about, and that is the price of gold. Yeah. As of this recording in early January, the price of gold is nearing $4,500 an ounce, which is crazy. You know, I remember a couple years ago, I mean more than a couple now, when I started, and it was a big deal if gold was going to break $2,000 an ounce. And now we're nearing $5,000, and predictions are all over the board for what gold's going to do in 2026. Now, everybody knows macroeconomic circumstances, geopolitical circumstances, uncertainty in the world affect the gold price because, you know, outside of jewelry, people see it as a safe haven investment. They buy it, they sink their money into it. And that drives up the price. And as we know already, 2026 is not going to be free of geopolitical or socio and economic turmoil. There's already been big news on that front so far this year. So, I expect the price of gold is going to keep going up in 2026. And, it's going to be something designers and retailers are going to have to figure out how they want to contend with if they want to continue to sell gold jewelry to consumers.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's been certainly a polarizing topic, and I know it's been a source of frustration for retailers as they've had to, constantly go back in and readjust pricing.
Yep.
And there's, whether it's pressure from their brands that they carry to readjust the pricing, or if they do it, voluntarily. But it's certainly been an interesting challenge for them. But I also think it's been really promising to see what consumer demand has been for the metal in the jewelry space. Yes, I think, gold prices are high. The price of gold jewelry is, 60% higher than it was last year. The price of gold is 60% higher than it was last year. So you're having to really put out a lot more, but you are actually at the same time seeing the value of the piece. And I think there's that intrinsic love of the metal, which is interesting, to keep driving that sale forward. So
right.
I definitely think that's been an interesting topic and one that we will certainly continue to talk about in 2026. Obviously, we also have to talk about the price of silver. Gold is definitely not alone in this challenge of rising prices. As of today, $78 an ounce.
Wow.
$83 at its high, I think, in late December. So silver has been very rapidly increasing. I mean, refiners had stopped processing silver at some point last year because they just had too much of it. So there's definitely a lot of push, and I think we'll continue to see silver back in fine jewelry stores across the country, with high-end silver as being a really great option, especially as, the prices are a little bit higher. It lends itself nicely to fine jewelry.
And I think, too, we're just seeing from a trend basis more demand. I think we're going to see more demand for mixed metals in 2026. I just feel like it's a look whose time is to come back. Trends are always cyclical and they always come back. And I feel like mixed metals is something you're going to see more of in 2026, both because it's something different, because we've been with solid yellow gold for so long, and because it'll give designers a way to bring the price down if instead of, the piece being all gold, it can be gold and silver. But I want to talk about something else too that was big news in 2025, and it's how we're starting 2026. And this is changes at the top of some of the big jewelry industry companies and organizations. The first one that comes to mind is, as everyone knows, Susan Jacques, the longtime head of GIA, retired at the end of 2025. So
Everyone's favorite.
Everyone's favorite. So Pritesh Patel is new president and CEO of GIA. Mm-hmm. So GIA is starting the new year with new leadership. And I'm also thinking about Pandora. Yeah. Pandora's CEO retired. He retired, and Pandora's starting the year with a new CEO. And then, of course, you have, and I wrote about this at the end of 2025, Terry Chandler retired after a total of 40 years in the industry, I believe.
Yeah, right.
And Annie Dureska is now taking over as the president and CEO of the Diamond Council of America. It feels like there were a lot of big announcements about longtime people retiring at major companies in 2025, and we're starting 2026 with some key leadership changes.
Yeah, and I think there's also some reports about leadership that's going to be taking place mid-year. We're hearing
Bulgari's going to have a new CEO in July.
Right. So fresh voices, fresh perspective.
Yes.
Different take on consumer demand and what consumers are looking for sure, and what the industry, and helping to steer the industry into this new future, which is an exciting time for the industry for sure. I mean, I think
it's interesting.
2025 was a ride.
Yeah,
it was,
really was.
Between tariffs and gold prices and lab-grown diamonds and natural diamonds and that whole discussion. Obviously, gemstones being a huge part of it. I know for JA, we were, spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. and doing a lot of lobbying and advocacy work. So it was definitely an interesting time. One exciting thing that we saw a lot of in 2025 is independent retailers opening new, beautiful stores.
And big stores.
Big stores. So we have Jack Lewis Jewelers, and this is just a few because there are certainly many more of them. Jack Lewis Jewelers in Illinois, J.R. Dunn Jewelers expanding its flagship, Corman in Austin, Texas, Zadok in Austin, Texas.
Moving into Austin
for the first time. And then Robbins Brothers has a new Pasadena flagship. Foundry has a new Palm Beach store. And this wasn't 2025, but in 2024, you and I went together to see the new CD Peacock Mansion in Oak Brook, Illinois, which was an incredible experience.
Yes.
What I love about this topic and what I think is a testament to our industry is independent jewelers seeing the demand from their consumers to have a bigger presence, investing in their communities by building this presence, and really seeing that shift to consumers wanting a luxury in-store shopping experience. It was always that consumers went to jewelers, and then we started to talk about the online space and getting comfortable with online and social and how that changes. But we are seeing all generations wanting a luxury experience.
Yeah.
And whatever that luxury is for you, whether it's, your first pair of, stud earrings, like with a piercing store in New York City, or if it's, a huge brand new tennis necklace or whatever you want to buy for yourself, an engagement ring purchase, watches. So it's been an exciting time for retail.
Well, I think there's two factors here at play. Number one, I think when the internet first became a thing, and I'm thinking back for me to the early days of Blue Nile. Yeah. I think it was a novelty, and there was, limited information available on the internet, but people were very excited. They're like, oh, look, I can buy a diamond online and the 4 Cs, and I can get the information I need. Now there's such an overwhelming amount of information on the internet that I think people are looking for an expert, looking for one person to ask. I read this about natural diamonds. I read this about lab-grown diamonds. I read this about watches. Like, what's right? Because there's so much out there now that I think sometimes people don't know what to believe. And, I think the novelty of online shopping to some degree is worn off. I think, anytime something new comes along, it explodes at first, right? There's the newness of it, and it's different. And I think we're seeing people they want that expertise. You mentioned the luxury experience, but I think that when they want that expertise, they're not sure what to believe when they absorb so much information from the internet. So I think that's one factor. Yeah. Number two, I think there is a little bit of wanting to shop local. Shop local is becoming a thing, and I will give a little antidote from my own life. I have a tradition with a very good friend of mine. Every Saturday after Thanksgiving, we go shopping along Fifth Avenue in Brooklyn. It's the American Express Small Business Saturday. Yep. And I can tell you, we didn't specifically go to a jewelry store this year, but I can tell you every single store we were in was packed. And little independent retailers selling toys, selling cards, selling just, tchotchkes, whatever, what have you, just fun little stuff. Every single one of them was packed. And there were so many people out shopping. Now that's Brooklyn, that's Fifth Avenue. It's kind of, it's not every town across America. But I think people are interested in shopping local. And it's really nice to see. And I think it's, independent jewelers are getting a bump from this trend as well.
Yeah. And I think there's two other important parts of that, Michelle. And I think one of which is this, even just take the selling gold, right? There's that experience of taking something into a jeweler, giving them something and say, let's make this into something special.
Right.
It's very hard to do that online.
Yeah.
So to be able to have that return experience, not just the first purchase, but what are you going to do after that? That lifelong partnership that you can have with the jeweler, that connection that you have with the jeweler, we are definitely seeing that continue. I know as part of my media tour that we did for JA for the holidays, talking to morning shows across the country, it was that very thing. It was like, yes, go buy jewelry, but make sure that this is a place that you're going to want to return to have it cleaned, to have your prongs checked, all of those things. And, the investment when the retailers are doing it back to the community, hopefully the community is going to do it back.
And, we want jewelers want people to think of them as, well, that's my jeweler.
Right.
Like, that's my dry cleaner. Like, that's the person I go to. That's the person who does my alterations. Yeah. Like, this is the person I trust. This is the person I go to when I need this. or I have a problem with this, questions about this. We want people to feel that way about their local jeweler.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's what it's all about. That's for sure. We are definitely going to be talking more about the state of the industry with our two next guests.
Yes. So we're going to be so happy to welcome our first two guests for the My Next Question podcast. They're two people who can help put all of these changes in perspective, and that's Sherry Smith and Edahn Golan. Sherry's the Vice President of Coaching Strategies and Development for the Edge Retail Academy, and Edahn is a longtime industry analyst. He's a co-founder of Tenoris, which is a data analytics firm for the jewelry industry. And I have to throw this in, Edahn was also once a jewelry journalist. That is how I met him when I met him back in 2008. So we'll be back to talk to them after this short message.
Looking forward to it. Jewelers of America is the most trusted and influential voice of the jewelry industry. With a mission to empower and unite its members, Jewelers of America provides guidance, education, and advocacy to promote excellence, integrity, and success in an evolving marketplace. Since 1906, Jewelers of America has been advancing the fine jewelry industry, setting high ethical standards, and fostering professional growth for their members. Jewelers of America represents a large, diverse membership of retailers and suppliers who commit annually to the organization's code of professional practices. Visit jewelers.org to become a member and get insider access to the many member benefits.
Welcome, Sherry and Edahn. I've been keeping up with your updates all throughout 2025, and from what I read, it seems like independents had a good year. So I want to know, am I correct, did independents have a good 2025, and what did the, quote, good stores do right? Sherry, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Okay, so our good stores would be clients that we consider were coaching, and what they did right was execution on all levels. As to whether or not it was a good year, I think it was a price-driven growth. The units are down. So I think those retailers who executed really well outperformed the industry, but I think the independents as a whole, there's some nuances that we'll need to talk about.
Okay. And when you say price-driven growth, you mean sales look higher because, for example, the price of gold was a lot higher?
Exactly. And the tariffs and so forth. Because when units are consistently down, as they were for the majority of the year, and the average retail sales up, driven by that, it sort of masks, right? It looks like they had growth, but it's a little different.
Sherry, we'll dive in a little bit more to some of those nuances, but before we do that, Edahn, I know that you have a lot of great information on the majors, so the large jewelers as well. What can you tell us about how they performed in 2025?
Well, surprisingly, they did not perform as well as independents. Independents, we know, had a superb year. And when you look at the companies, not just Macy's, but also the high-end companies, Tiffany, et cetera, those guys had a low, on average, the figures aren't out yet, but they had a low single-digit increase this year. And some of the brands were flat year over year. Part of it had to do with the tariffs. Part of it had to do with lack of adjustment to the new market conditions, and a lot of it had to do with China overall. In the United States, though, they're still on the lowish side.
And before we dive into a product by product category breakdown, Sherry, I want you to go back to what you mentioned earlier about the nuances. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think 11 out of 12 months, the units declined, and some of them were pretty significant. There were a few months that were minor. We call anything under 1%, we consider flat from the Edge Retail Academy. So when we saw that, but we saw these incredible spikes in average retail sale, it just suggested that traffic could be softening. I say that cautiously. I always say that cautiously because not all of the independents use door counters. We wish they would. We think they should. That's executing at a higher level because I think they take for granted that the people that walk through the door, they're actually closing. So, yeah, and they're not. And there's a lot walking, right? More than we ever anticipate. We always, and I was a retailer myself, so I get it. We overestimate the number of people that we actually convert to purchases. But I think when you look at that, when you look at the units and the decline, we were celebrating the growth, but again, if gold had been flat, if there were no tariffs, would this have been a year that they declined? To me, this signals some challenges we're going to see in 2026.
And we're going to get to 2026, but I want to spend one more minute on 2025. And you both can answer this. What were the strongest product categories last year? And I mean like pearls versus colored gemstones versus diamonds.
Okay. So watches were very stable for whatever reason. And when I say stable, they had very small fluctuations in units and so forth, although we are starting to see a deceleration. Diamond categories are still some of the strongest performing categories. What's been interesting to me, and I would love to hear Edahn's perspective since he's the diamond guru, but I've watched diamond categories go from what used to be 49 to 50% of annual sales to down to about 42, 41%. That's a big decline over the past few decades. It used to be the core, right? If you carry diamond jewelry, diamond categories, you knew you were going to do pretty decently. We're seeing that shift and that change. Colored stones did pretty well throughout the year. I think our retailers could do a better job of highlighting that and using it as a point of differentiation. Mm-hmm. So diamonds are still important. Watches were pretty steady. For me, that's what I saw in the data.
Well, Edahn, you've been elevated to guru status. What can you share with us?
He's a diamond guru.
Thank you, Sherry. So if we want to look at specifics, I think that we can't ignore what happened with tennis bracelets that had a significant jump in demand. It doesn't make them the top seller, but the change was very significant. And I think that it's at least partially attributed to the low cost of lab-grown diamonds. So, and that also might partially explain what Sherry just said about the decline in the prominence of diamonds. If we separate lab-grown from natural, we will see that natural is a very important component. We're looking at about 14, 15, 16% by value market share. And then we are looking at the ability to create something that's very big. So if you want to buy a lot of stones, which you will have in a tennis bracelet, that's definitely the case. I think that the impact of gold, I have to differ with Sherry a little bit here. Gold was up 66% this year, just the commodity. But if we look at what happened with the average prices of gold jewelry, we see they were up 30%. So partially there's the issue of commodity appreciation, and also there is an element, I believe, of reducing the amount of gold put in jewelry to maintain price point, which is very important at retail. At the end of the day, if there's an overall trend that we can see in this context, is I believe the willingness of the American consumer to buy more, to spend more per item. So we're seeing a decline in units, so they're buying less items, but what they are buying, they are willing to spend maybe the difference, maybe the combination of a number of jewelry items all in one item, and that is, I think, very welcome on the part of retailers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. So we've heard about the strengths, the performers, if you will. What were some of the weaker categories? I know you both sort of alluded to them a little bit in your statements, but what were some of the weakest categories in 2025?
We'll probably disagree.
So I'll give you, okay, you go ahead. You start.
So natural diamonds, while there was occasional upticks and so forth, it's very, right now it's just so controversial. And it's funny because what Edahn was talking about, the diamonds, he's right. In value, natural diamonds are still incredibly important. And I don't think that will stop. But we're still figuring out, right, this new disruptor, the lab grown, which again, it's in its infancy. It's not brand new. But I can tell you in our data, natural diamonds for the year, gross sales were down 2%, units were down 10%, while the average retail sale was up 9%. But lab grown, gross sales were up 13%, units were up 19%, which suggests that some consumers are spending less. So with traffic down, there's a new willingness, especially among Gen Z, and we're probably going to see it in the alpha generation as well, who are like, you know what, I'm okay with a lab grown engagement ring. And that is a disruptor to our industry.
Yeah.
It's not something that's easily fixed. Our retailers are going to really have to learn how to navigate the story, because I don't think either one's going away. So the ones who have embraced both and are able to separate and tell the different stories, they're the ones who outperform the industry by a long shot.
Interesting. Edahn, what do you have to add to that?
What we're seeing with lab grown, first of all, obviously it's not gonna disappear. Lab grown is gaining market share. The most important regions for the natural diamond area, and that is an engagement ring. It's more than 50% by now. 50% by units, of course, not by value. And that is leading to a couple of things. So first of all, we're seeing a lot less loose sales, right? Because retailers buy loose and set them in the store. And then we're seeing obviously a push to the bigger sizes and better color and clarities on lab grown, but there is a halo effect that is doing the same with natural diamonds. So we're seeing larger diamonds, we're seeing nicer diamonds. It's not anymore just the GHI, SI clarities. It's moving up a little bit. And that has a big impact on how retailers should treat the customers that walk in to buy them, and how do they, of course, build a series of items that will fit each price point as needed. By the way, the weakest items that I saw, hoops, and surprisingly, anniversary rings. So people are not celebrating. I don't know.
Wait, Sherry, you laughed. Was hoops a wild card for you?
No, it just conjured up. I don't know if anybody watches SNL, but they did a hoop segment that was pretty funny with J-Lo. But
yes.
But interestingly, Edahn, you probably noticed that earrings are still a high, like one of the outstanding category performers I found. Yeah, exactly. With the completed, just to expand a little on Edahn, with the completed engagement rings data, I wanted to share that. And I made a note on purpose because it's interesting again to me. But natural completed engagement rings down 4% in sales, down 2% in units, down 2% in average retail sale. And it's the opposite for the lab grown. Their completed engagement rings are up 31% in sales, up 30% in units. And the average retail sale, believe it or not, just under 1%. So what didn't even show a decline overall for the year. So again, interesting data to see how this is all going to work out, especially as we have younger demographics coming up now who have a completely different shopping mentality and a completely different outlook to natural diamonds than, say, the baby boomers or the Gen X that our industry had thrived off of for so long.
Let me ask you this, and this is a question for both of you. Edahn, you mentioned the bigger diamond sizes. Do you ever think we get to a point where, if you spot anyone with a 4 or 5 carat ring, you immediately assume it's lab grown, and thereby people would say, I'm actually going to go with the smaller ring because I want people to know mine is natural?
Absolutely. Well, it's Gaudi. I mean, it's not. It doesn't look good. Once you try to take luxury and take it to an extreme, it looks not natural.
It's not really luxury anymore.
Yeah, you lose something of the sort of the beauty of it. I think that when you look at this in that context, that's definitely the case. So people are going to 2 and 2.5 carats today is the most popular items in lab grown. And in natural, people are moving up to 1.5. For many, many years, we're looking at 1 carats. And the difference in price is significant. But there's another element that I want to add in this context, and sort of a follow-up to Sherry as well. The fact that people are moving away from engagement rings set with natural diamonds is leading to a erosion in the perception of diamonds. When I say diamonds, I mean natural diamonds. And that in the long term is going to be very painful for the diamond industry. The ability for a consumer to look at a bunch of similar items and say, to me, they all look the same, so there's no reason for me to pay extra for anything that is rare or retains its value, or anything of those elements. That is very harmful for the diamond industry.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, sharing Edahn, that lab-grown diamonds were the biggest challenge to the natural diamond industry in 2025? Because we know the miners, the manufacturers, they had a difficult year, to say the least. So were lab-grown diamonds the biggest problem for them?
Well, Edahn can speak to some of the nuances from manufacturing and all of that. That's not my area. I will say it certainly contributed, because across the nation, your mom and pop shops are going to choose the path of least resistance. And if that means they can sell a lab grown all day long because there's no price objection and the consumer's open to it, they're going to do it. They simply are. To speak to Edahn's point about too large, like we dine with the masses to sell to the classes, right? So across the board, the average retail sale that's been reported on a natural diamond for years, I used to laugh at, because my store was in a very, metropolitan, densely populated area. The average couple didn't get engaged till they're 29, 32. That changed all the dynamics. But when you're looking at rural areas, it's a much lower price point. I think it's changed the world for them. I think they can now accept, I can have a carat, or as Edahn said, a 2 carat. Mm-hmm. But when you go to our industry shows, ladies, there's mm-hmm. lots of women sporting 3-4 carat natural diamonds. I mean, we have colleagues on our team who do. Yeah. So whether it's too big or not, that's coming from a guy. So we're going to have to take that with a grain of salt. but on that,
I don't want to pay for it. That's the.
Yeah. On that note, there is something that Edahn touched on, and it's a question I think more about, does it become ubiquitous? Mm-hmm. Part of the love of the natural diamonds, and for whatever reason, humanity, we love that not everybody can have exactly what we have.
Well, that's the allure, right, of any luxury product. Look at me with my Chanel, my Louis Vuitton bag.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And Michael Kors and Coach, they both dealt with the same problem. Everybody wanted their bags, and then it became ubiquitous, and they had to go and fix it. And they did, kudos to them. So I think we're still finding everything settling out. We're mm-hmm. not exactly sure what it'll look like, I think, in the end, and we're all learning as we go. Anybody who says they know exactly what's going to happen, I don't believe.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting to see how retailers are starting to the storytelling, which you both sort of talked about. Is that the great equalizer, or is it, to Michelle's point, is it a societal change where big becomes, I don't want that, because then they're going to know that it's lab grown, and they go back to natural. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how 2026 plays out in this continually changing lab-grown and natural discussion, for sure.
Yeah, on the economics of it, there are 2 issues, I think, at retail that are very important. One, retail will always want to sell the products that consumers want to buy. The whole idea of, I'm going to educate my consumers and they're going to, nonsense. You sell you cater to what they want. That's one element. But there's another element, and that is when you look at 2 items, right? A consumer walks, say, into a store and is willing to spend, say, $3,000 on an item. And 3,000, let's just for the sake of it say, it can go primarily to the diamond. It used to be that in such a case, a retailer would make a larger gross profit, not just the gross margin, a larger gross profit from a lab-grown diamond. Today, that is changing. And we're seeing that you can either make the same or even more with a natural diamond. And that's because natural diamonds prices are down, and with lab-grown, it's just, prices are off the chart, and in a negative way. So the bottom line is if you're keeping a close eye on your bottom line, you're going to be keeping an eye on that. on your gross profit. And that is a very important driver. And if you need to spend 10 more minutes with your client to convince them, you will.
Yeah.
So I just have to touch on something. Can I touch on it real quick?
Sure.
So Edahn's exactly right. I feel like we hear the stories of having to educate our customers, and we do all these surveys, and I can tell you, being on the retail side, the average consumer doesn't care. And it sounds harsh, but it's the reality of what we deal with. If we're having to push a story so hard, they come in, they want what they want at the end of the day. It's up to us to determine. We can certainly inform them and help guide their decision, but they don't care. They don't care about the challenges that are happening on the other side. They're coming in because they need an engagement ring or they want diamond stud earrings and so forth. I 100% agree with you, Edahn, on that.
Yeah. They're educated by their peers.
And especially today in the social media landscape, and they're talking to their friends and they want what their friends have, and where did you go, where did you shop, what did you buy. It's a huge part of it, more than ever, that's for sure. So let's talk real quick about predictions for 2026. And Edahn, I'll start with you. What are your predictions, not just lab and natural, of course, but for retail? What are your predictions for 2026?
I think the future is bright, and just from looking, let's look at it from a data perspective. 3 years ago, retailers were selling less. I'm talking revenue here. Last year, in 24, they had a better business. This year, they have an even better. In 25, they had an even better business. And if you look at the increase in revenue, we're looking at about 5-6%, right? GDP this year is up about 2 to 3%. Inflation is about 2%. So as a business, in real terms, and not just in numbers, but in real terms, we're seeing that there is an increase in revenue, and therefore that's a reflection that the American consumer is willing to spend more on jewelry. Doesn't matter how we really break it down within the jewelry sphere. 3 years in a row, that's a trend. So I'm very hopeful. Of course, if there's going to be some external mitigating circumstances, major war, disease, corona comes back, whatever it is, COVID, that will change things, of course. But given that, the environment around us doesn't change a whole lot, then I don't think we're going to see a decline. I fully expect an increase in demand all across the board.
Sherry, are you as bullish on 2026 as Edahn?
No.
That's why we have you on together, our balance.
What'd you say, I know this is why we get along. So I think we prompt each other to think. Look, I do think it will be bright for some, and this will, again, seem selective, but I think 2026 is going to be a year about execution more than it is optimism. I think seeing the decline in units that we have seen is not just going to go away. Big data companies like McKinsey and so forth, they're already saying they see a softening demand particularly in the jewelry category, which worries me a little. Having said that, I think there are enough bodies walking through the door of these retailers, which is why I said it's going to be about execution. They need to pay attention to different KPIs, conversion, the bodies that are walking through. The average retailer does 2,500 repairs a year. That's an opportunity to sell and convert to fine jewelry purchases. They don't always focus on that when things are happy and easier and prices, as Edahn said, revenue's up. Okay, so it sort of masks some of those woes. They're going to have to pay attention to different things in 2026 if they want to keep seeing the growth, because there is serious decline, guys, in that unit. When I say that, we're looking at the average. While I have retailers who are greatly outperforming the industry, there are those who are significantly underperforming, and it's about execution or lack of.
Great tip.
Thank you, Sherry and Edahn. That was a great discussion, and Happy New Year to you both.
Yeah, thank you for coming on our first episode.
For 120 years, National Jeweler has been a trusted source of news and information for fine jewelry retailers, designers, and manufacturers. The publication delivers up-to-date information and commentary on the latest trends, headlines, and happenings via its daily newsletter and its 2 flagship print publications, the State of the Majors and the Retailer Hall of Fame. To learn more and subscribe, visit nationaljeweler.com/subscribe. You can also find us on Instagram. Our handle is @nationaljeweler, as well as on Facebook and LinkedIn.
We want to close out our first episode of My Next Question with a really fun episode called Facets of Fun. So during this segment, Michelle, you and I will each month talk about something interesting. And this month, I thought it'd be really fun to talk about our personal love of our own jewelry.
That's great.
So let's talk about some of the things that you're wearing today. I know a couple of these things are near and dear to your heart. So let's talk about jewelry and what makes it special.
Okay, so I have a tradition every year that I buy myself a piece of fine jewelry.
I love it.
And this is quote self-purchasing. I think it's great. And I do it, as I mentioned, I do it for myself every year.
Yeah.
So this year I really wanted a diamond tennis necklace, and I had been eyeing this particular diamond tennis necklace from Dana Rebecca Designs for years, and I finally pulled the trigger this year. Should have pulled the trigger before gold was, what was it last year? Over 3,000 an ounce? Never mind, nevertheless.
Better than buying it this year.
Yeah, better than buying it this year. So Dana Gordon owns a company. She's a designer and owner. She's lovely and fabulous. And I actually have little hoops from her that were my pandemic purchase.
Cute.
So I just love this. It layers so well with everything, and I get so many compliments on it. And then, in keeping with the, I'll call it neckness light, I have a longer paper clip chain that I have had here for years. I have a small pendant from Buddha Mama that I absolutely love. And then I've paired it with this Pegasus charm. It is the Lunas 2026 Good Luck Charm.
So cute.
And it celebrates the ability of humans to rise above their challenges and resiliency, and I think it's a great message for 2026. I also point out 2026 year is the year of the horse, the year of the fire horse, I believe. So it's also in keeping with that.
Yeah.
So those are a couple of the pieces I have on today. What
And just
about you?
ironically, you also have a horseshoe ring on.
I do.
Also, Michelle, that's one of yours.
So I bought this years ago at the Miami Antique Show, and I bought it from, I cannot remember the dealer's name now, but she was lovely. It was a men's ring. She had to size down considerably for me. And when I bought it, she told me that horseshoe rings, when you wear them pointing out, that brings good luck to others. And when you flip them around and the ends are pointing towards you, that brings good luck to you.
So thank you for your good luck, Michelle.
You're welcome. I'm scared to wear it the other way because it feels selfish and I feel like I'd curse myself.
Well, I love
we
that.
all have these, that's why jewelry is so interesting. Like, it's so personal, and we all have these little, thoughts, myths, whatever you want to call them, superstitions about the pieces we have. Like, I have a necklace from my grandma I don't have on today, but I wear it every time I'm on an airplane for 2 reasons. Like, number one, I feel like it protects me from anything happening to me on my trip. And number 2, this is the one piece of jewelry I own that absolutely cannot be replaced. And I feel like if something would happen to my apartment while I was gone, God forbid, at least I would have this with me and it would be safe.
I love that. Well, my jewelry is definitely a mix of highs, lows, all over the place. So I have a necklace that was just a small necklace that I actually just got from my mom. This was one of her necklaces that had, I think she had a little charm on it. But I've just started wearing this and I rarely take it off, which I love. And it's like definitely a little bit different than today's chains. Like, you can feel the difference. It's, I don't know, it's probably from, I would guess it's probably from the 60s or 70s.
I love raiding my mom's jewelry box. I'm like, you don't wear this. You don't wear this.
She doesn't wear gold, so it worked out. So my sisters and I both got to, go in and play a little bit with her stuff. And then the bottom one here was my grandma's, which my grandma was the original OG jewelry lover. She always had a dresser that most people would put their sweaters in. My grandma always put her jewelry in. So all of our dances, we'd go to her house and play, and, she would let us wear these beautiful diamond pieces for our, prom or winter formals or all of those things. So getting into the jewelry industry, while I was not born into the jewelry industry, I sort of felt like I was always from the jewelry industry in some bit because
Yeah.
she loved it so much. And then the middle necklace is a lion heart emerald and diamond necklace, which is absolute a treasure to me. And then my bracelets, which is really funny. So I have a bangle that I got at some random store in the jewelry, not the diamond district, but like the costume jewelry district, sort of in the 30s.
Oh, okay.
When I first started in the industry, and the enamel is just incredible, and it still wears really well. And then I have a bracelet from Zabar that was has a beautiful high heel charm on it, but I love that. And then I have a Gigi Franti, which is an absolute treasure to me with her passing that never comes off. I always wear that. It's a bolo bracelet, but it has a little diamond accent on it, which is beautiful. And then I have a stack of these little fun bracelets that my girlfriend runs, the Nassau Suffolk Services for Autism, and their adult services program. They bead bracelets as a fundraiser for their program. So I always have a handful of those that I mix in with my highs and lows. And then I have on some gold hoops that I actually did from a Jewelers for Children auction at a JA New York show, I think it was, many, many years ago, just 14 karat gold hoops that they're like my go-to every day.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're very lucky to have gotten those when you did then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they were a steal back then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this was such a fun episode.
It really was.
I love spending time with you. We're so excited to have everybody here. So thank you, Michelle, my co-host, for this great episode of My Next Question. Thank you to everyone who listened to and watched us today. And we really look forward to having you back. Don't forget to subscribe to My Next Question wherever you find your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Jewelers of America members and at National Jeweler for all of the latest news and insights on the jewelry industry.
And we'll be back next month with an episode on 2026 jewelry trends, so do not miss it. Thank you so much.